All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting of March 17th to order. If we could all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No two for you guys.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama, Shippers,
Here.
Bowman,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Mayor Filkins.
Here. And if we could have a motion to approve the agenda as it's been presented?
I will make that motion to approve the agenda.
Support?
Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Malama, Filkins. Mayor
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, we'll open the floor to public comments. This first public comment is to cover the items that are on the agenda this evening. If you could keep the comments to 3 minutes, and if you come up, if you could please provide your name and address to us, we would appreciate that. It doesn't look like, oh, there you are.
I'm Jean Kohler, 9360 South 45 Road, and I come down here with a couple of reasons, because I wanted to meet the new mayor, so she knows who I am and I know who she is,
Okay.
and to thank the board for support of the Cadillac Farmers Market. This will be our 31st year that the market has been in downtown Cadillac.
Wonderful.
So I'd appreciate approval when it comes up on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Is there anyone else? Okay, at this time, we'll close the first public comment. And we've been presented with the consent agenda, and if we could get a motion to approve that, if there's no discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support?
No discussion? Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bowman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama, Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the City Council, our public hearing this evening is to consider the approval of a resolution to adopt an ordinance that will amend our code regarding water and sewer cross connections. Our Utilities Director, Jeff Dietland, does have a brief slideshow that he'd like to show everybody to try to help explain a little bit in greater detail what this program is. As it was discussed at your last City Council meeting, the purposes of amending our ordinance is to essentially come up to code ourselves. So, Jeff?
Flip around. Hello, Mayor, City Council members. As Marcus had said, I'm here today to discuss a little bit about cross connections and what it is, and a little bit about why we're updating our policy. It came to light recently when we were reviewing our city ordinances that our policies on cross connections maybe weren't, well, they were not up to the current city or current state code. So we're trying to bring them up to the state law level, and that's what we're doing tonight, is just amending our ordinance. I have some slides here. On this slide here, you can see all these apparatus here are what we call backflow preventers that keep flow from sewer and water from mixing back in our system. And I have some slides here. Michigan Safe Drinking Water Act of 1976, the Public Act 399, defines a cross connection as a connection or arrangement of piping or apparatus, I'll skip that one, through which backflow could occur. A cross connection can be any temporary or permanent connection between the public water system or the consumer's potable or drinking water system and any source or systems containing non-potable or water of other substances. So on the pictures here, you see where they had a garden hose just plumbed right into a drain pipe, probably to, this drain pipe probably was getting plugged, so they just plumbed in a garden hose to flush it out. In this one, you can see a shower head, one of these removable shower heads that you can spray all over. It's just laying in the bottom of the tub here. And if this drain would plug, you'd have a cross connection here. And in this one, it's kind of hard to see, but the in the back of a toilet, the fill tube is actually below the overflow of this tube here. So it's actually getting water from, it can do a cross connection from this tank back into the main system. So that's what we're trying to remedy in our cross connection program. And as you can see here, this is what happens in a cross connection, is you'll lose water pressure here, and you'll have one of these cross connections where you'll have a hose that's in something other than drinking water connected to the drinking water. And when you lose the pressure here, let's say there was a main break, or let's say there was a fire where you're drawing a lot of water out of the system, the water will actually suck out of people's homes and back into the city system. And with this, if they suck some bad chemicals back in here, then it can go to all these people's homes.
Then it would really suck.
Yeah, then it would really suck.
Sorry.
You want to be on this side of that pipe if this happens.
East of the suckage.
So, how do we protect the city water system from cross connections? A cross connection with potable piping systems are prohibited by state plumbing codes. Additionally, Michigan water utilities are required, and you can see that's bolded, to have a cross connection control inspection program of their water customers to eliminate and prevent cross connections. A cross connection ordinance and a cross connection program, we're looking to do both of those. We survey the water customers. We do surveys of the water customers. We do annual testing of backflow devices, or the customers do the annual testing, send us the results that they pass. And we have educations and brochures that we're distributing to the public. I think the next one is actually a State of Michigan brochure. We just printed this out today that all indicates what cross connections are and how to prevent them. And that's what we're kind of doing tonight with this ordinance, is just bringing us up to the cross connection, so we're where the state wants us to be.
So is this something new from the state?
Evolving. It's something that evolve. I mean, we've had it for years and years and years, but some of the laws, the state changes, and if we're not on top of it, we kind of miss them. And so this was some of the laws, one of them like the testing of the devices, penalties for if you don't test the devices, that's in the ordinance. Those are things that we kind of came up and were relatively new to us, and we didn't have in our ordinance. So. Any questions? Comments? Well, thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from anybody about that?
Well, I'll make a motion.
We need to close the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
hearing if
Yeah,
there's
sorry.
any more
Okay.
discussion.
All
So
right.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and then if we could have the motion.
Then I will say, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt ordinance number 2014-04 to amend section 42-199 of the city code for water and sewer cross connects.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Halima? Shippers?
Yes?
Spelman.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes, motion carries. Sandy, could we have the communications?
Yes, the first one is a request from Joy Vandry for a street closure on Mitchell Street between Cass and Pine, and on Harris Street from Mitchell to Lake from 12 noon to 6 p.m. on June 8th, 2014 for the Back to Bricks Classic Car Show.
I had a question for Joy, since you're here.
Absolutely.
Well, when I was reading through your request, one of the things that I saw was the vendor move-in, and I didn't make it down to the event last year, so I just wondered what type of vendors do you have, and how many vendors do you have?
Well, at this point, we have all of the vendors returning from last year. We had 4 food vendors, and then we had additional like car-related vendors that sold, different types of paraphernalia for your vehicle. So, what happens, like last year, we had 256 registered cars in downtown Cadillac, which didn't include probably another additional 50 to 70 cars that never registered. So it drew several thousand people, and even over a 6-hour event, the current restaurants in our downtown can't handle that volume. So to be able to make sure that the people who are coming to the event have the ability to be able to eat, that's why we have additional food vendors. We do make sure that the food vendors that we do have there are not in conflict or are selling different types of food than what our current restaurants do downtown.
Good, thank you.
Are we at the beginning of their tour? Cause this is pretty close to the date.
Well, this year, the Back to the Bricks promotional tour does not come up north. The promotional tour starts in Lansing, and it goes throughout southern Michigan and down into Indiana. And we were really dismayed that they weren't going to be coming back for the 3rd year. So we've actually paid a licensing fee through the Visitors Bureau to hold an official Back to the Bricks North.
Okay.
So like last weekend, I was down at the Autorama, the Hot Rod Show down at Cobo Hall, and like 70 to 100,000 people go through that show. I handed out 3,000 brochures myself over the weekend to promote people to come to the event. So we've created a nice little partnership with the Back to the Bricks Committee down in Flint to be able to bring people up north. So with our event being the first weekend of June, and the Flint official event being in August, it actually gives people from downstate a whole new option of being able to come up for a full-fledged weekend. Because this year, you'll notice too, the event isn't just on Saturday, or isn't just on Sunday, it's on Saturday as well. So we have a classic car show, or classic car blessing on Saturday, which will actually be hosted out on the north end in one of the large parking lots. And I'm still trying to finalize some legal details, so I can't really say exactly where it's going to be. So we're trying to involve the entire community in the event this year as well.
Cool.
Wonderful, thank you, that sounds great.
Yeah. So last year, like I said, we had 250 some cars. This year, we're probably going to have. One of the reasons why I've requested a side street is for overflow. We know that we can only fit about 250 to 300 cars on Main Street because we have to keep one lane open. So if we have more people show up, I don't want to create a safety issue. So that's why I've requested that side street to be closed off as an additional kind of a plan B to be able to fill up that street as a secondary option. Because we're hoping to be able to bring people up probably close to 400 cars this year. We already have 25 plus, I think 26 registrations already, and most of those are from people downstate. So, any other questions?
I don't think so.
So mark your calendars, it'll be a good day.
We have
It's a Sunday, right?
Excuse me?
Saturday and
It's Saturday within the greater community. We actually have the classic car blessing on Saturday morning. Then they will be sent around on like a fun run cruise. They'll have 2 or 3 options in the greater Cadillac area to be able to cruise around and kind of get a feel for the community. Saturday night they'll have a sock hop available to them up at McGuire's. And then so Sunday we'll have the classic car show, as everybody knows, down on Mitchell Street on Sunday downtown. So it's shaping up. It's looking like a pretty cool event.
Well,
good.
I'll make a motion to approve the street closure request on Mitchell between Cass and Pine and on Harris from Mitchell to Lake from 12 noon until 6 p.m. on June 8th, 2014 for the Back to the Bricks Classic Car Show.
Support?
Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Melama, Shippers,
Yes.
Spelman,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Second item is a request from Al Nelson for the street closure of Lake Street between Harris and Cass from 6 to 10 p.m. on several dates, June 3rd, June 17th, July 1st and 15th, August 5th, and August 19th for the Jack Pine Pickers concerts.
I just had one question off their request that is different than some is, are they doing a block party with that?
I didn't see that in
I
this.
believe it's the same request from, no, they just use that form. It's just the form.
Yeah. Oh,
Unless you consider that a block and a party, then it would be a block party.
I saw the form and then how he was putting the blocks.
yes.
Like I wondered if if it was the wrong form or if this was an additional event.
That's all I know is if we're looking at street closures, summer can't be too far away.
I know. Hopefully they won't have to shovel. For that first event.
Hopefully we'll have our water running good.
Yes.
Oh, golly.
Well, could we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the street closure of Lake Street between Harris and Cass from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. on June 3rd and 17th, and July 1st and 15th, as well as August 5th and 19th, 2014, for Jack Pine Pickers concerts.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama, Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
The next request is from Rebecca Reening for a street closure on Lake Street between Harris and Cass from 12 to 6 on April 27th, 2014 for an Earth Day event.
And we are actually here, so do you want us to step up too?
Sure.
Because we're here for religion. Margot Jacobs and Diane Patterson. We actually are partnering, we're with Senior Green, and we are partnering with Transition this year, who has put on the Earth Day event in the past 2 years. This will be the third year for them. So we're just kind of helping them out and trying to expand the structure of the event.
Okay.
Great.
Nice.
It's a
We
great
both have your
event.
green on today.
We do. We're hoping that you're going to cut us loose with yeses so we can go have a beer.
And listen to Zach play.
Appropriate, isn't it?
You can go listen to my son
beer.
play. A green.
Wow, thanks. Any questions on it?
That's.
Does anybody have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the street closure on Lake Street between Harris and Cass from noon until 6 p.m. on April 27th for Transition Cadillac's Earth Day celebration.
May I make an amendment to that, please?
You sure
And
can.
also include their requested signage as indicated in the application.
That's correct, yes. And their request to have off-premise signage.
And street shovelers, ice bars, and heat lamps. Propane heat lamps, whatever you can do to change the weather for us would be
27.
nice.
It's going to be nice.
If we see some earth, we'll be happy.
Yes, a little bit of Earth for Earth Day would be lovely.
Well, I'll watch the shack go down.
I'll support that motion.
Thank you very much.
I'll second that emotion.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama, Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Sandy, now we'll move on to the appointments.
First appointment is a reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. of Clifford Allen for a 3-year term to expire on 4/21/2017. Mr. Allen's been serving for 6 years thus far.
I'll make a motion that we approve the reappointment of Clifford Allen to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term which would end April 21st, 2017.
Support.
Sandy, could we have the roll call?
Councilmember Malama, Shippers,
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
The second one is a recommendation regarding the reappointment of Randy Champlin to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term to expire on April 4th, 2017, and he's been serving for 9 years.
Wonderful.
I will make a motion to approve the appointment of Randy Champlin to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term expiring on April 4th, 2017.
Support.
Sandy, could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama, Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
The third reappointment is for David Van Lente to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term to expire on April 21st, 2017, and he has been serving on the Planning Commission for 4 years.
I'll make a motion to appoint Dave Van Lente to the Planning Commission for another 3-year term, which will expire on April 21st, 2017.
Support?
Sandy, could we have the roll call?
Councilmember Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama, Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Once again, thanks to those people who volunteer for those boards. It's nice to have good people there representing us.
Absolutely. Marcus, at this time, could we have the city manager's report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The first item under the manager's report this evening is a presentation with respect to the draft Complete Streets program. This is something that the city was very lucky in receiving a technical services grant for. Michael Woods, a planner with the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments, is here this evening to provide a brief update to City Council on this plan. And in just quick summary, before Michael comes forward, Complete Streets is essentially a philosophy where you take into consideration not just the component for vehicular traffic, but for pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, and essentially other modes of transportation to try to create a whole complete picture, sidewalks, bike lanes, car lanes, turn lanes, the whole gamut. So as you're planning, you're at least recognizing these different components, and certainly, ideally, you're able to budget accordingly to have a complete street when you go forward and you do a design build. That's a very top-level summary of what the Complete Streets idea is. But it's much more than just that. And Michael, if you could just come forward and
Yes, thank you,
give us your
Marcus.
2 cents, that'd be great.
Yeah, you pretty much explained it all, so,
Love it.
yeah, all set. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, as Marcus stated, City of Cadillac was awarded Kellogg Foundation grant in the form of technical assistance administered by the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments for the purpose of creating a Complete Streets plan. Complete Streets, if no one's heard of it before, it's kind of, I guess, a new strategy or new policy that's it's not really new to Michigan, but kind of around the country. And I'd say about 400 to 500 communities around the country have adopted a formal plan or ordinance or guidelines. The type of plan or the type of, I guess, philosophy, as Marcus referred to it as, it varies from town to town. Within the state of Michigan alone, I think there's about 75 to 100 communities, so about a fifth of complete streets policies are located within our state. And it's basically it's a very good plan to have with regards to community development and placemaking, specifically economic development. And as Marcus stated, it takes into account not just one user of the road, i.e. vehicles, but all users, cyclists, pedestrians, transit, and it hopes to accompany all facets of users, from children getting to and from schools, from their neighborhoods, and the elderly population, wanting to walk to a shopping center or downtown from their place of residence. And so in putting together this complete streets plan, Marcus and Jerry Adams was very instrumental as well. Put together a stakeholder group that represent the city of Cadillac, and we met a handful of times, and they gave us their input on where certain segments of streets and corridors should be paid attention to with regards to where possible improvements could be made. And that's all laid out in your plan. I think the key thing to notice is that there's 4 different maps in that plan, and looking at not only where there's high activity of pedestrian and cycling travel, which is map 3, the mode assessments, but also where are your pavement upgrade needs, where are all your crashes occurring, and then finally, where are your public assets, and how do those all kind of tie into each other? MDOT passed a resolution back in 2010 stating that they're going to start coming out with something more formal in terms of looking at roads within their jurisdiction and how to assign complete street strategies to their state highways and roads. And the final language was supposed to come out by the end of this year, but I've been told that they're still working on it. But what that means is once language is concrete, it'll be a lot easier to work with MDOT, or it will be a lot easier for communities that have an MDOT road that goes right through their downtown to work with regards to upgrading their pedestrian facilities. And so having this plan is a big step forward, and it tells MDOT, and not only that, but other possible grant funding resources out there, that the city of Cadillac is ready for upgrades. And should any of that funding come down the pipeline, you guys will be pretty much ahead of I wouldn't say first in line, but you're definitely up there. You're ahead of many other communities. I'd say most communities within the state.
This is a step. We haven't met in several months since the new year, actually, but this was a step that we wanted to accomplish, where we essentially had a draft of the plan put together, brought forward to City Council. There's no action that we're asking the City Council to do tonight. More or less, this is just an introduction to all the work that's been done. Certainly, we're looking at bringing this back. I believe we're going to look at bringing it back and adopt it by resolution. There are some communities that also eventually adopt it by ordinance. I think we're still trying to work through that component of it. But as you'll go through it and go through the data, it's really fascinating information that's a part of it, especially some of the graphs. Jerry, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, it's just you've already indicated we will eventually be bringing this back. We'll be making a formal presentation with the PowerPoints and so forth. And at that point in time, we will ask you to hopefully adopt it. So it probably will not be in the too distant future either. I anticipate we'll have maybe one more committee meeting, finalize the draft, and put it into a form for public distribution, and then ultimately bring it back to council, as well as the Planning Commission.
That'll be good. I'm looking forward to seeing these maps in color They were kind of difficult to look at in this copied black and white and shaded format.
You can have a copy if you like.
Oh, thanks.
In color.
Thank you.
Spoils you.
And I want to
interesting.
say, too, that Mike has been extremely instrumental in helping us. He's just been great to work with, and it's really been enjoyable to work with the region, and particularly with Mike.
Mike, will you explain what an angle accident is, an angle injury crash?
So basically, it's a perpendicular crash. So someone's traveling out and they don't see it due to poor sight distance or timing. It's kind of like a T-bone.
Okay.
And then an injury indicates that one of the passengers had to seek medical treatment because of the severity of the crash. So anything that's coded an injury means medical attention, and then property damage only, that's just a fender bender.
It was interesting today as I was reading through this. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was reading it, when we get started on a street, let's say, there's a lot of different aspects of making this a street that includes all of these components. And it's not a requirement that we implement it 100% on a given street if our finances don't allow for that. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And in fact, it states that in the very back of the page explicitly, but also throughout the document. This is just a plan to get you ready and to have you look at when you go out and make a road improvement, to say, hey, this is a segment of road that's by a school and connects the school to the neighborhood. A lot of kids travel down this corridor, if you will, these sidewalks. While we're here, tearing up the road, the sidewalks need probably tearing up too, because they're all uneven and chipped pavement and cement and everything. So it just gets you to kind of look at the roadway or the corridor as a whole instead of just the vehicle traveling portion.
Good.
But yeah, absolutely, this is not a mandate at all, and that's not what Complete Streets is all about.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
One of the things that I noticed when I was in a wheelchair not long ago is that there's like handicap parking downtown that is like on a side street angled, but there's no bump out. You have to go out into the street and go around to where the sidewalk comes in to be able to get
From where you're parking.
Yeah, in a wheelchair. So that was something that was like, because I hadn't realized that you can't get up any curb, and there's no, from those handicap spaces, you have to go out in the road and out around.
Yeah, and there's there's a lot of very low cost mitigation strategies. I think one of the most overlooked mitigation strategies is simply making sure a crosswalk or the corner of a crosswalk is cleared of debris.
Right.
Because if there's too much debris there, that's gonna make it difficult for someone in a wheelchair, someone who doesn't walk as well, to get through there to cross the street in a safe and effective manner.
This is really important to look at, especially in light of some of the pedestrian accidents we've had, and one just recently.
Yep.
I like the importance of painting some of those crosswalks.
Pavement markings, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item this evening is with respect to the use of the use of the city parking lot for our farmers market and their off-premise signage request. This is a request that's come forward now every year that I've been here, and certainly as mentioned during public comments earlier this evening, 31 years? Yeah, 31 years in a row. The Cadillac Area Farmers Market is recognized by the Downtown Cadillac Association as one of their annual events. that has helped us along with respect to granting of the off-premise signage as we've done in the prior years as well. There is nothing really any different to mention this year. I do want to mention that the market does plan to open June 20th for half days between 8 a.m. And 1 p.m. on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then starting July 1st, the market will open on a full day basis from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. every Tuesday and Friday until October 31st of 2014. The market will not be open July 4th this year, which does fall on a Friday. There are 4 conditions, if you will, that are not unlike the conditions that we've passed in the that we've approved in the past with respect to this event. The staff does recommend approval of the use of the Lake Street public parking lot for this 2014 season. And for placement of signs as noted above within our context of the communication, as well as under the following conditions. The signs shall be limited to the days of market operation, shall not be placed more than an hour prior to the day's opening of the market, and shall be removed no later than an hour after the day's close of the market. Signs shall be located such that they are compliant with the standards of our B2 zoning district. They also must be compliant with the clear vision setback requirements of MDOT. And the farm market site shall be maintained in a responsible manner with all litter and debris properly disposed of at the end of each operational day. If there's any questions I can try to address, that'd be great. Otherwise, looking for a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to approve the off-premise sign request and use of the parking lot for the farmers market on Tuesdays and Friday, starting June 20th through October 31st, excluding July 4th.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Spelman,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama, Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. This next item, again, has come regularly every year. Actually, on the same meeting date and time as we've done in the years past. This is with respect to the Bead and Jewelry Show, which is done in coordination with the Cadillac Arts Council. Again, this is with respect to off-premise signage. The conditions are somewhat similar. Signs placed within the right-of-way of the state trunk line located in the city of Cadillac shall comply with all the permitting requirements and standards of MDOT as applicable. Additionally, the signs shall not interfere with the pedestrian or vehicular movement nor impact public safety. And the period of display shall be limited to April 12th of 2014.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from Chris Fisher for the off-premise signs to be placed at Mitchell Street and Pine Street and Mitchell Street and Cass Street for the Northern Michigan Bead and Jewelry Show, April 12th.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spelman,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama, Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Moving right along, the next item is the winter sidewalk program discussion. I wasn't quite sure what to call it, but Councilmember Spelman, this is the item in reference to your request at our last meeting. We did receive a link that you sent to us, which I thought was a great piece of public information and communications that St. Paul, Minnesota uses, and we're going to try to play it in just a moment. Is it? Tell me when you're ready. If you can hit the.
Are these familiar sights to you? Whether you have difficulty walking or not, an unshoveled sidewalk can be quite a barrier to getting around during the winter. If you are a property owner in St. Paul, you are required to shovel your sidewalk. Shoveling after a snowfall makes life a lot easier for everyone, especially those of us who use a wheelchair or have difficulty walking. It is not just the law, it is the right thing to do. The images you have just seen are powerful reminders of why it is so important for property owners to remove ice and snow from their sidewalks. And no less important are those sidewalk corners. With over 40,000 sidewalk corners in St. Paul, the city and your neighbors need your help in keeping them clear. Take a few minutes to clear your sidewalk and corners and keep St. Paul accessible for everyone. To report an unshoveled walk, call the city at 651-266-8989. For more information, you can go to the city website at stpaul.gov/snow.
One of the interesting things, too, that I noticed that St. Paul does is they actually have a printable door hanger. And they encourage their residents to print out and then hang on doors that they happen, and Sherry printed some out, it looks like, and then hang on doors of neighbors or of other folks that they happen to be walking by where there is impediments to walking by. I have not reached out and spoken with anybody. I just simply saw that online, and I thought that was kind of a neat idea. Not quite sure if there's, what their success level has been, or if it's resulted in brawls or anything else. But it's kind of a neat sort of police yourself approach to the program. That being said, I also had within your packets a copy of our current ordinance on the books, as well as I passed out a copy of that same ordinance, but some of the other sections, just with respect to sidewalks themselves, as well as a section on what a municipal civil infraction is. That's the term that's referenced within the snow and ice removal section of our code. And so I figured I would print that out as well. And by the way, the city clerk is listed as one of the officers of the city that can issue a ticket, so I thought that was kind of interesting. City manager's not in there, nor do I necessarily want to be issuing tickets personally, but I just thought it was interesting that the city clerk was there. In any event, I thought that this might help spur some of the conversation, and I know, Sherry, you had some things that I think you wanted to add, obviously. So.
Well, yeah. I think this is important for us to talk about now, even though we're heading into spring, because it would be my hope that we could really focus on ways to make this work for us next year. As we have this discussion also, one of the things that I did pick up on when I was doing the little research that I did is it's not only important to remove snow, but it's also important to remove ice. And actually, if the snow is removed right away, then the ice doesn't get built up. But just on my way here this afternoon, from my office 2 blocks away, there were 2 young men, boys, walking, and it was treacherous for them. They were going like this, and not in front of the county building. I have to say that, because the county has been so good about cleaning their snow every day. That was all cleared. But the apartment complex next to the county building that hasn't cleared their sidewalk all winter, or almost all winter, it was a sheet of ice, and you could hardly walk on it. And so that's what we have now. We'll have that until we have meltage. I think this is important for us to work on. And as I took a look at this, I realized that there's a lot of different approaches. We have an ordinance on the book. And essentially, we have decided to not enforce our ordinance. My understanding is that if somebody complains, then it'll be looked into. But if nobody complains, then nothing is done. And the ordinance clearly states that if you're a property owner, whether you're a business, a church, a school, a museum, a dental office, a landlord, a county building, a city building, I don't want to pick on anybody, but I got to pick on everybody here. It's your responsibility to clear the sidewalk on every side that your building is on. And so if you're in a situation where you're renting an apartment or a house from somebody, you probably need to have that conversation with your landlord. Whose responsibility is this going to be? Is it going to be yours, or is it going to be mine? And that is usually part of the lease agreement. So as I had a conversation late last week with Todd Golnick from the police department, and I said what I'd really like us to do really is to take a look at what some of the best practices are in other communities. We probably have a lot of neighbors around Michigan that are communities like us that struggle with this, and maybe we can learn something from them. And so when I did do a little bit of research, and I plan on, we're going to the Michigan Municipal League Conference, legislative conference tomorrow for a couple of days, and I hope to talk to some of our colleagues then. But the success that different communities have related to this varies. Traverse City has struggled with this, and I've taken a look at some of the blogs and the newspaper articles written from just the Traverse City area. And then the other thing that has kind of complicated this is a couple of, I don't know how many years ago, we decided as a city that we should invest more of our resources into clearing those sidewalks ourselves. So then you come across the question, are we taking the owners out of the picture, and then they start to rely on us as a city to do it. So anyway, I've tossed all that around in my head on what the right approach is, and I also looked at the survey that we have on our website, and I can't remember when it was put up there. But those questions kind of lead one to think that we were considering not having that ordinance anymore, and that it would just be the city's responsibility for cleaning the sidewalks. I think that would be a mistake to remove the ordinance, frankly. I'd like to go back to us really working hard at trying to figure out a way to make everybody know that this is their responsibility to do this. And I believe that we have to have a good communication plan put into place to start with. And the communication plan has, all the other cities that I got good information from, it was on their website, and it was top of mind awareness. And I went onto our website and I didn't see it. The only thing I saw was that survey. I know that we've put notices into bills before. The newspaper has always been really good about working with us and putting an article in there. But I would encourage us to think about how we could really communicate this. But I think before we ever even start to get to that point, as a council, I want us to talk about it and to see if it's a priority amongst all of us, or if this is just my priority. Maybe we need to ask the public if it's their priority. I don't know, but I don't want to fight this battle by myself, although I could. This is one that I feel really strongly about. And if it is indeed a priority that we all agree on, then I'd like to make sure that it becomes Marcus's, as the city manager, his priority, and he pushes that down to his department heads and so on. And we look at creative ways in solving this. And we put resources into solving this. And so that people, when they're plowing the streets, don't just plow the streets. Maybe they see an opportunity to, take a shovel out of their truck and get a sidewalk while they're at it. Or, when the plow goes through and they're blocking off a sidewalk that has just been cleared, how do we deal with that too? It gets really complicated, especially in a winter when we've had as much snow as we've had this year. And then there's always the concern that there are people who are disabled or elderly or somehow unable to be able to shovel their own sidewalk. And so how do we address that? I think we need to be prepared to have that conversation. And do we give certain people exemptions? Do we work with agencies to do a public-private type of partnership to somehow get around that barrier? Do we enlist Boy Scouts? Do we have other community volunteers that help us with that? Do we ask everybody to do the good neighbor thing and to reach out to their neighbors and help shovel their sidewalks? That would be certainly a question that we need to address.
That handout, Sherry, Councilmember Spelman, that you provided actually mentions, I think, using the
Yeah,
211.
it talks about calling 211, and I think that's a great,
Yeah.
but when we do have people call the 211, we want that 211 operator needs to know who he or she's going to direct that caller to. You know, is it Love Inc.? Is it the Council on Aging? Who is that?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that there's a structure in place here yet to accommodate that, but I just thought it was interesting that was sort of that key access point, was to have people go through that system, and then presumably they would get you in contact with the right.
And then, of course, we have to have the resources in order to enforce it. And then what would that look like? I didn't look this far into our fines. You know, in the research that I looked at, the fines were like $25 the first offense and then $50 after that. This looks like it's a lot more than that, so it might be something we want to look at.
Yeah, under the third page of the handout, under penalty, it defines what the municipal infraction is, and then it talks about a fine, I believe, could start at no less than $50.
Right.
I'm looking for that section, I don't see it.
Section C1.
Yep, there it is.
And not more than 500.
Right.
Okay. I was looking down lower at the $250, and I thought that's way too much. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a $50 fine.
But, yeah, we spend a lot of time and a lot of resources on making sure that our streets get plowed and taken care of. And we do that to move people from point A to point B in a safe way. So I'd like us to be as thoughtful about our operations when we talk about, moving people on their feet or in a wheelchair, or somebody with a stroller, or somebody who doesn't have good vision, or whatever the case may be, who's on their feet walking or moving from point A to point B. And even able-bodied people trying to exercise, or I gave the example the last time of just trying to walk to a restaurant downtown, how difficult it was. Several times I've had to walk in the roads this year to get someplace because, I make a personal decision not to jump into my car every time I want to go a few blocks. And walking in the roads is not a safe thing to do.
Right.
Thank you, Sherry.
It also, when you visit a community where the sidewalks are cleared and the streets are cleared and there's mountains and mountains of snow, but it's still walkable and usable, it really puts a good face on that community. And that's something that, I'm sure visitors, we try to encourage people to come up in the wintertime, and we want to make it accessible for everybody in the wintertime. So I'm with you on this. I'll put some energy into this.
Yeah, and I think that, you brought up a lot of different ideas on how do we make it happen. And I think for it to truly be successful, it has to be a combination of all of the above.
Yeah, I think it does too. We can't just say we're going to do it without a good plan. And it really does have to be well thought out, I believe. And we all have to be on board with it.
A couple of things. It's interesting, this came up the other morning at the Issues and Solutions Over Coffee. And one of the questions I think that was asked, did say about, does the city ever re-look at their ordinances? Because it does bring up, they were addressing other ordinances too. They weren't real excited about enforcement on this, but the concern is like, a lot of the times it ends up being neighbors trying to enforce it on them, and what's the fairness? If we act on one person, we have to be fair and act on everybody else. But a couple of things that I think need to be considered is a lot of the seniors. And I've had a few of them because I'm trying to be one of those in the neighborhood helping them out. But they're the ones that are the most concerned about getting a ticket. And they're the ones that are 80-something years old, and they're out in sub-zero degree weather, not even worried about their driveway, but the sidewalk. And there's a fear out there. They don't want to have to pay for a ticket. They're scared of that. And I think we need to really look, if we're going to do any changes, of really considering, if that's the route we want to go, is issuing tickets. I also, not to have Mr. Homey here, but I know there's been some recent action with the city downstate, and I don't even know if we even have the authority, I don't want to say on sidewalks, but I know in certain areas they've ruled that, I don't even know if we'd be able to cite, an infraction on a citizen if they consider that a public walkway, but that might be something to look in, because I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking about.
I am.
We may not even be in that. But, the other point, and this has been brought up by some individuals, whatever we do, I really think, and I'm not proposing this, what I'm going to say, but if we do it, we can't just impose on the first sentence and not look at the other group of the community of the second. And I know some people, over the years, this continually comes up, and that's the question I always get, is why are we just pushing on one part of the residents, but the second sentence we're not?
I don't know what you're looking at.
The section that talks about and again, I'm not proposing this, but the section that talks about those that don't have sidewalks in front of their homes but those abutting property owners to still clear a path.
Oh.
And I do think, in fairness, whichever route we go, we can't say we're going to enforce this ordinance, part of it, and we're not going on the other.
So
it's going to have to be
a sidewalk coming here and a sidewalk coming here, but there's no sidewalk there, they're supposed to clear it too.
Right. Or in those areas.
So like if you're at the end of the sidewalk, you're supposed to continue to clear the...
I wonder how many places that actually occurs in this town.
Well, that's one of the other things they have is the problem that I see with this ordinance is some of the other ones are pretty darn clear. I mean, if we're going to try to enforce this thing is so, it says as far as practical. Well, there could be 20 definitions of practical.
Well, I think that this used to be more common than it is now, that there would be strips where there wasn't really a sidewalk, and now there is a sidewalk that goes through there.
Well, there is, like at Crippen Street, where I live, the sidewalk ends at my driveway. And on the other side of the street, the sidewalk ends 2 houses down. And Crippen Street is right up to Diggins Hill. So right where the sidewalk ends, everybody's going into the street to pull their sleds up Diggins Hill. But by the same token, there's lawn there, and you use a snow blower in the lawn, and it creates a huge mess. Until you have 7 or 8 feet of snow, like we do now. But that's something to consider.
Blower would chop up the lawn?
Yeah, it chops up the lawn. Yeah, and it dulls the thing, because we tried to do that.
So what is this thing that you were referring to, Mr. Homier? What was that
I
scenario?
didn't want to put him on the spot of
He
not.
said he was familiar.
Oh.
There was a case filed in federal court over an ordinance adopted by a city which required property owners to maintain that tree lawn space, that space between the street and their property. And the court ruled that it was unconstitutional to force public or private citizens to maintain public space, which is essentially what that case was doing. Now, that had to do more with lawn mowing. So the question is whether it's a similar situation in which a court would find that a city where you have a sidewalk ordinance requiring them to shovel the sidewalk, whether that is forcing a private citizen to maintain an otherwise public space. And so as not to be a nuisance. I see some similarities in it, but I see big differences as well. So And, there are statutory provisions under Michigan law that allow municipalities to specifically adopt ordinances requiring the removal of snow and ice. Whether or not those also apply to home rule cities is another issue. There are specific statutory authority that apply to general law villages that authorize villages to adopt ordinances similar to what the city has here. And if you look at most home rule cities, they have ordinances no different than the one the city of Cadillac has. And to my knowledge, at least sitting here today without having done more extensive research, there aren't any cases striking down those ordinances, but maybe for altogether different reasons. In the city of Howell, which is where this case originated, it was a situation in which the city had done some road improvements. They tore out some trees that the plaintiff in that case had planted, and then came back and replanted those, but they were then put in place with guy wires holding the trees in place, and it made it virtually impossible for the homeowner to mow it, and so he quit mowing it, based really on the premise that the city had told them that this is city property, you don't have a right to determine what's planted in that property. So the homeowner said, well, if I don't have a right to determine what's planted there,
I'm not going to mow it.
I'm not going to mow it.
It's not mine, I'm not tending it.
And the case actually has a picture of the area that was not mowed, and sure enough, there are 4 or 5 trees in there planted with these guy wires then holding up these trees, and it makes it very difficult to maintain. So the federal court determined that it was unconstitutional requiring a private individual to maintain a public space. Whether or not that case is on appeal or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't want to get ourselves in a situation like that. I hope that everybody can be reasonable with this discussion and move forward with whatever's best for our community.
Yeah.
Well, I think we live in a community where there is probably as many or more people walking as there are in cars. And, I've witnessed even on our street, I have to stop and make a left-hand turn into my driveway, and the traffic coming towards me, someone was running. I don't know why on a day like it was, but someone was running, and she was running in the street towards traffic. And when I was trying to turn left, there was no place for that traffic to go, so she was completely stopping traffic on 55, and I was afraid she was going to get hit. So, but also, when we talk about the sidewalks, there's that whole health aspect, but we have kids who need to be able to walk to school, and they're in the streets. And so I really feel like we have an obligation to stay after this and figure this out.
One of the things that they said was helped make a program successful was if citizens were told really clearly about what their expectations were, because if we give them a time frame that the snow needs to be removed within X number of hours, they need to know what that is. Instead of just 24 to 48, that's too long of a period of time, or it's got too much of a window of change in there, or they just don't know by when do they have to have it removed. Some cities say that if it snows during the night, you have to have it removed by noon. So that would be one thing that we should think about. Some say you don't have to remove it unless it's 2 inches or more. Some say you don't have to start removing it until the end of that snow event. Right.
Well, and I think we need to be reasonable in that thinking, because people have to get up and go to work in the morning.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, right. Right.
You want them to be able to work and come home and be able to do it. Right. And we also need to think about our postal carriers.
Exactly.
I mean, they have had a really, really long winter.
Yeah.
So
I actually saw, and I don't think it was a U.S. postal carrier, I think it was the Delivery Service, wearing snowshoes And it just blew my mind. You know, they old-fashioned looking. They weren't old-fashioned, but they were.
Yeah.
It was the design. I never remember seeing that growing up. Carrier wearing shoes. If I may make a suggestion, this is some really good input that you guys are that you're providing, and I'm not trying to stop the conversation. Certainly, if there's more, please continue. But looking at this, playing this forward, I think we need to amend the ordinance. You know, just the two quick examples you just provided, Councilmember Smallman, about, you know, requiring people to come out after a certain amount of, you know, a certain number of inches have fallen, looking at setting up expectations regarding timing. I mean, those are things that you want to have codified. Perhaps the next step to that would be to try to bring back some of those, you know, written down in a draft amendment to the ordinance, as well as, and I don't think it necessarily has to be very complex, but a simple communications plan. Here's how we're going to start targeting our community and when, and the different communication methods that we can use.
I'm going to hand you this. This is really summarizing my thoughts. And on the bottom of this is a motion that I wanted to make. And I don't know if council feels that it would be important to make a motion at this time, or if we're just going to entrust that staff is going to move forward with this. But it would be a motion to have the city manager direct his staff to develop a thorough communication plan and enforcement plan of the existing sidewalk snow removal ordinance, so we'd have to change that language, to achieve greater compliance during the 2014-15 winter season and beyond.
That works. I would just suggest changing the language about existing.
Okay, I'll make that motion then with, without the existing ordinance, but it gets complicated because we might also want to include the possibility of changing an ordinance.
So what's your motion?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that.
Well, I mean, we can always change the ordinance once we start the work, so don't worry about that wording.
I'll move that the city manager direct his staff to develop a thorough communication plan and enforcement plan to achieve greater compliance with sidewalk snow removal during the upcoming winter season and beyond.
Support.
So we're automatically putting an enforcement plan. One of the questions I have too with that, and a lot of things I end up hearing back is we have a list of ordinances and the staff doesn't have the ability to enforce them all. But a good example is not, we get this a lot, I'm sure you all get calls over the years about cars that are parked over the sidewalks, which is something they're not supposed to do. So when the sidewalk plow comes, basically possibly three homes are affected, but we haven't enforced it. And that'll be the same homes, you know, and it's the question usually when the calls go to Marcus or to Pete before that was we just don't have the staff power to enforce it. You know, and I know that's with a lot of the other things, it becomes a neighborhood watch system, but
one of the suggestions was, because there's a lot of communities that don't really have the personnel to enforce these well, is putting in place, and that's on here, a really good system to report things. So it's not it's not just a 1-800 number that you can call, but that's a good one. It's also being able to report it online really easily. And that becomes part of the communication plan, you know, so that in addition to helping our neighbors, we're also being the eyes and the ears of the neighborhood and putting those things forward so that they do get dealt with.
You know, and truly as we think about this, it is about being good neighbors and understanding where there is a need to have those sidewalks cleared. Somebody wouldn't be complaining if there wasn't a need to be able to pass through those areas. And so, you know, part of the enforcement is we enforce ourselves.
So when people park like that and they do it on a regular basis, I think we should bring that to their attention that they're not supposed to do that. Because so many times these things happen because people aren't aware that they're not supposed to.
A lot of it is that.
And I think that's why a lot of the businesses on these side streets, not the core downtown, but the other ones, don't clear their sidewalks because they don't know they have to.
So the communication is a big piece.
Communication's a huge piece, I think.
And then I think in terms of enforcement, something like this with a first call, where there's a place to call for assistance. If you need help, it says if you need help, here's a place to call. If you need more information, here's where to call. So I think that, instead of your first stop being to issue a ticket with a fine to somebody, you go to somebody's house and they're 88 years old and unable to do it, you help get them the help they need to do it at that point. So I think that will all be in the plan, not that we're saying that we're going to start enforcement today, but that we're looking at
Right. I'm using that in a broad sense of putting, more teeth into it that makes us want to do it. If it gets,
I understand where you're at. We're just sending a pretty strong request to the staff, of setting this one ordinance, but I understand what you're saying. I just know there's a lot of concern out there by citizens of how they're going to do this, and that's the one area that I'm just cautious on, is that enforcement part, but.
Well, we're not saying at this moment what that enforcement looks like. We're just committing to the fact that we want to
putting a plan together.
put a plan together.
I think we're pretty sure we want to revisit this ordinance.
We'll be looking at that plan.
And I know I understand where you guys are at on that. I do agree that it needs to be revisited.
Well, and it needs to be with respect for the staff and for the citizens in the community, not just what we want it to be, but what can be manageable.
Right.
And what are the resources available to help us make it happen?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it obviously can't all fall on the staff. So.
Right.
I think we should appoint a Councilmember Stevens, who
I would
can
not-
go and do that.
I would not be the right person for that.
That was the joke.
Good idea.
Just to throw out, as the conversation winds down, a community that I used to work for in their public works department when I first started out years and years ago, had like a teen job match program. The city simply maintained a list. I really don't know how much vetting they did with respect to backgrounds of the people. Some of them were volunteers, others were not. They actually asked for compensation. But basically, if you were a senior or elderly or you needed help, whether it was cutting your grass or shoveling your snow, you could call the city and ask for a copy of the list, and then it was just handed out, and you'd have to call the numbers of some of the local kids that would come out.
But I think that's where we could utilize that 211 service that we now have in the community for those lists to be available to people.
Right.
And so that doesn't come down to the city staff. That could be the 211 number.
Right. Well, and that organization had over 500 employees. Square mileage was actually a little bit, I think, smaller than Cadillac, but yet we didn't have the resources to shovel people out either. I mean, we would refer them to the list.
Okay, so we had a motion and we had a second. Is there any more discussion?
Did we have support?
I did.
Oh, thank you.
Good, okay. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Melama, Shippers,
Yes.
Coolman,
Yes.
Stevens,
No.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item is with respect to participate in the Michigan Deal Program, the My Deal Program, to purchase road salt for the 2014-2015 season. This is a program that we have participated in the past with. The city is one of over 250 communities that utilize this process. The state essentially bids out for the best price to achieve the most cost savings, and the city is thereby able to benefit by that by participating, by locking in a price and acquiring the salt at this point in time. There is a requirement, however, that we do waive our own bidding process, I believe. Is that in there? Is that not in there?
We've not had to do that before, no, because we're authorized to participate at the outset of the bidding process, so.
Oh, all right.
We're just adding our quantity.
I thought we did that before. So.
Nope, not on this one.
We are looking at purchasing, Owen, $108,000.
Well, we said 1,800 tons, and our, that's gonna be 1,500 early delivery and the option to get 300 late delivery. We don't know what the cost will be. It did go down this year. It was $62 a ton before, and it was like 54, 55 this year. So it's, I'm just putting that out there as an example of $60 a ton, but we're asking for the quantity, not the amount.
And do we know about how much we've used this year?
A ton.
All of it.
All of it.
And then some.
Yeah. We bought 1,300 tons, had some left over from before, and if you go over there right now, it looks like there's about one truck full.
Oh, no.
It's spring.
Yeah, we're supposed to have
Yeah.
an event on Wednesday. We're supposed to have ice and snow on Wednesday.
We have a little bit of a contingency plan, but if winter goes into July, we'll be in trouble. Table salt, yeah.
Sand.
Sea salt.
You can't get to it. Okay, so,
So the motion would be a request to authorize participation in the My Deal program to purchase road salt for 2014 and 2015.
I'll make that motion. Do I have to state it too, or no?
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama, Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. The last item under the city manager's report this evening is to request the setting of a public hearing to consider the approval of the 2015 through 2019 capital improvement program on April 7th, 2014.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for April 7th, 2014 to consider the approval of the 2015 to 2019 capital improvement program.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama, Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
And we have we already set whatever work session we have?
We have two more already set.
They're already set?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the next one is on the,
April 7th?
that's the first budget?
Yep.
Okay. At this time, we will go ahead and open the floor again for public comment. Again, public comment is limited to 3 minutes, and we would invite anybody to come forward who would like to. I do understand that we have the Boy Scouts here. I am pretty astute, aren't I? So, why do we have all of the Boy Scouts here?
Maybe ask him that.
So they all have to come up one at a time and introduce themselves.
Okay, either you can all come up at one at a time and introduce yourself, or you can send a spokesperson.
You know everyone's name.
Yeah, I'm James Tomaszewski. I'm the senior patrol leader for Troop 125 here in Cadillac. And we're here as a part of the Citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. One of the requirements is that you visit a city council meeting, so we're just fulfilling that requirement today. So.
Thank you for coming. What did you all think? They saw a job opportunity here tonight, didn't they? Yeah. Well, welcome. We're glad that you had the opportunity to come and join us.
What grade are you all in?
Oh, every grade under the sun.
Are you?
Like from what age to what age are you? Youngest to oldest? 11? 11 to 17?
Nice job.
Is the whole troop here?
No.
No.
But who are your leaders?
Ah. Stand and be recognized.
We have quite a few leaders actually here tonight. Mr. Ingram, Mr. Kinney, Mr. Dietland, Mr. Sheehan, and Mr. Liptek, and myself.
Great.
Nice job.
Thank you for having us. And actually, we end at 8:30, so we wish you well in the rest of your meeting, but I need to talk to them. We're planning the next camp out, so.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
You bet.
Thanks for coming.
Perfect timing.
That was.
Art said by 8.
Yep.
I think, did you say by 8:30 or did Jeff?
Jeff, I think
Jeff
Jeff
did.
said
Jeff. We did good.
This is their meeting time, 7
Yeah?
to 8:30.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah.
I mean, that was to the minute.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to come up during public comment?
Yes. Neil Wolf, 427 East Cass Street. I was very interested in Councilman Spoolman's presentation on the snow removal. That has been an issue that has concerned me for the past several years. I think you do need to be aware that there are people who will refuse to remove their snow. I have been particularly concerned about Mitchell Street, North Mitchell Street, north of the downtown area. And I have personally talked to and called several of the business owners in that area due to the fact that is a very difficult area, very dangerous area, because people do have to go out into the street, into a major street there, to avoid going in the snow. And I have had at least one business owner tell me, well, if you want a shovel, come do it. But most everyone would say the city does it. And then I tried to point out the ordinance, that was involved. So I think you will get some resistance. But I appreciate the emphasis here.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, at this time then we'll close public comment. And we will begin the good of the order with Councilmember Spoolman.
I really don't have a lot. I think it's great that we've got a farm market in this community. It's certainly a huge asset, and to hear Jean say that it's their 31st year here is awesome. It's one of the best farm markets there is. Mm-hmm. It really is a great thing. Councilmember Schipper said it right after we made the motions, but I want to say again how much we appreciate the residents of the community who step up, the citizens, to serve on the various boards and the commissions. So a big thank you to Clifford Allen, Randy Champlin, and David Van Lente, as well as all the others that have previously been appointed and serve. And I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Stevens.
I first wanted to give credit to Mr. Pecha, but I feel bad I don't even have the Senate bill number. But
687.
What's that?
It's 687.
687. I want to give credit to Mr. Pecha on Senate Bill 687, which he has been proactively actually down in Lansing discussing it. I said discussing, not disgusting. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that
actually, for his efforts to doing that and being proactive, it's something that's kind of originated in Wexford County, but it's going to affect a lot of communities. And I know that Mr. Petch actually testified at a Senate committee meeting, and it just kind of drew a couple things out of it. Number one, due to the Board of Review, I won't probably be at the dinner tomorrow night that you have, but that it may be a good opportunity to, when we're talking to Senator Boer and Representative Potvin, to pass on the concerns that we have But it also brought up a thing that I've kind of thrown out for a few years is, I think that Cadillac is a well-respected community, and we should be more proactive in not just sending the letters as a community on items like this, but to communicate with reps and senators on this bill. Actually, if it ever got passed, I think it would probably eliminate any future agreements communities would have on utilities and things like that, because there would, if you read it, there'd be no reason to get into one if you're pretty much would be stuck in it
Forever.
And so it's just something that I thought would be good. The good news is that Senator Bohr is the sole sponsor of the bill, which usually there's going to be multiple ones, and I really don't see that it's going to go a lot, but it probably would be good to have the message from us strong about it, since we're the largest municipality in his district. So thank you, Mr. Petcha. I know that you've been spending some time on that.
Oh, he is?
Senate.
Oh, right, Senate.
Oh,
No,
yes.
not Traverse City. No, Traverse City is not in the
Actually not.
35th.
It's carved out of there, yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, in the 11 counties, and actually in the new district.
13 counties.
Right, with the new district, it'll be even larger, and in that district, it will still be the largest municipality. So,
Does he have Leelanau County?
Yep.
yep. But, and then also, and Joy, I know this will be your first legislative conference, so good luck at that. And other than that, I think, I did have, just to pass out to you all, I didn't have it last week, was the, what do you remember on this book? No, I didn't pass out the sheets I was going to tell you on the board of review that I had.
Oh,
Okay, that's it.
that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Council member Shippers.
I don't have much this evening, except that how much I appreciate the quality of discussions that we have in dealing with the CIP and dealing with goals and just issues that come before the city. And I appreciate so much everybody's input and expertise and questioning that they bring to each of these issues. I think it makes for a very dynamic and positive way of governing. So I'd just like to thank everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Petcha?
Thank you. Just a couple quick things. One, the run water is still on. So even as the temperatures are going to fluctuate up and down, left and right, keep it on until we start singing that it's off.
Still feel like I need to get up and shut it off.
Yeah, don't do it.
I do.
Keep it on. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is we currently do have an online fix-it form. It is available on our website, www.cadillac-mi.net. Left-hand side, and I believe it's titled Report and Issue. When you click on it, it'll then take you to a form called the Fix-It form. There's a half a dozen to a dozen sort of check-off boxes that you can check off for some of the more common issues. And then there's a box that says Other, where you can click that if whatever it is that you're trying to tell us about today, which might be like snow on sidewalks, as a for instance. And then you can just write that in. You obviously would need to kind of explain where and when, and this is something that we can look at adapting over time, but at least at the moment, it's there, it's active, and would be a good way of at least trying to track some of the issues that get reported to us. So just letting everyone know that is there.
Thank you. And I don't have much this evening. I would say that I am looking forward to spending the next couple of days down in Lansing with Councilmember Spillman and City Manager Marcus Petcha. And I would also, again, like to say thank you for the people in the community who step out and volunteer and work very diligently at making a difference. So thank you. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.